In this podcast, we chat about the defeat to Blackburn, look ahead to Sheffield Wednesday, and answer your podcast questions. This is the Boro Breakdown podcast, and this is like Boro Matchday Chatter in a pod.
Support. Curtis Fleming is there on the edge of the area. Fleming for Craig Hignett. Hit it, Higgy. Higgy hits the treble!
Avenelli coming alive again. Juninho wants the ball played to him. Avenelli spots out. Emerson!
Hello and welcome to the Boro Breakdown podcast with Jonny, Dana and Tom. We're the Boro podcast that gives you all the Boro Matchday Chatter in a podcast. And it was another defeat for Boro. Our winless run goes on and we sit at the bottom of the championship table after a defeat against Blackburn Rovers yesterday at Ewood Park. Guys, as always now, the one key takeaway from yesterday's game and also the international break as well. So Dana, what is your one key takeaway?
My one key takeout is that tempo is really important. I think Boro yesterday, and to be honest, this season have been really poor in the pace of the game. And I think a lot of our games this season so far, you can probably say that we've been slow. Like you ask 50 or 100 people from that game yesterday immediately after the match to give you their review of it. Amongst many other things, they'll probably say that Boro were just too slow. And I think teams can have that slow pace to a game, but I think crucially it's knowing when to speed things up. And Boro, it took them going 2 goals down to do that yesterday. And that's just really, really frustrating. So, yeah, a far cry from the team of last season. And, tempo, really, really important.
Tom, what's your one key takeout?
My one key takeout is that Tuesday's game against Sheffield Wednesday is now very, very important, I think, in terms of morale. There were points during that game yesterday where I was thinking, if we can go on and snatch a winner here or get something out of it, that could potentially be the thing that we needed to lift spirits a little bit and just raise the confidence, because I think what we're suffering from now is just like a real kind of lack of confidence in what we're doing. I think that's really kind of summed up by when Laff broke through 1-on-1 and took that extra touch and lost the ball yesterday. If you got the confidence to take that shot on, there was a shot there towards the far corner where you could have placed that and goes 2-2 and anything could happen. But I didn't think yesterday we looked as bad with the basics as we have in previous games. However, the longer this run goes on, I think we are going to suffer in not taking our chances or not playing that key pass when it should be played. As Dana's just mentioned there, it took us 2 goals to really wake up, and then I think after that we did actually look more threatening, especially after we scored that goal to bring it back to 2-1, playing it through the channels and playing it in front of players. We looked very direct and attacking at that point. But I feel like, and I don't really like singling them out, but when Rodgers and Silvera came on, a lot of their game was kind of aimed at running at people, but they didn't look like they knew where to go. And again, I think that comes down to confidence. I think a confident player goes around the outside or cuts inside away from a player and is able to kind of play that pass. And I feel like that really kind of harmed us in terms of the build-up. So I think, like I say, it is coming down to confidence a lot now. If we can get a win against Sheffield Wednesday on Tuesday, and I'm sure they're going to be looking at it the same way as well, then potentially that might give us the confidence to at least go into Southampton on next Saturday and play our game and look a little bit better for doing it.
Yeah, and just on you when you were saying there on Laff and going through, and then that one really good touch, then the second touch was horrendous. I was like, that if you could sum up how Middlesbrough are right now, that was probably that. There's some good moments that we have. You'll see like maybe a couple of good combinations. creating chances, not putting them away, and also being like, I don't know, we have some good moments, and then there's some times where I think, we've been trained at clown college like all summer, and just like I just don't know how we've got to the point that we have. We are frustrating to watch at the moment. I think Dan from Rovers chat messaged me and said, "Good God, like you are the most frustrating team, and I don't even support you." And I was like, "Well, yeah, how do you think I feel?" There's so much we can improve on. I think you're right, Tom. There's definitely a confidence thing there. You got to try and get that first win and hopefully kickstart your season. And you never know. Like, and I know I spoke about it previously, but our underlying numbers are still good, but the league table is still bottom, and we need those numbers to start coming good, because as time goes on and those underlying numbers get bigger and bigger and we start to underperform more and more, it will need us to massively overperform in games on a consistent basis like we did last year. We exceeded all like realms of possibilities for a majority of the last part of the season. And it was probably the best and worst thing to happen to Boro, because we were just so good and it was electric, and also we were outperforming every metric we had. So over time, obviously we balanced it out, but right now it's kind of like, well, we're a bit too far away from we should be. We technically, if you look at underlying numbers on goal difference, we should actually be third, which is actually quite funny. But obviously we're not. We're bottom of the league. We're massively underperforming the goal scoring. We're massively underperforming the goals against as well. So yeah, it's a difficult moment. I'm frustrated. I think like every other fan at the moment, and just got to be better. We've just got to be better in terms of, like you're saying, their basics, like you're saying, their tempo. We spoke about speed on this podcast for a few times now, and how the game is all around speed, really, in terms of decision making, trying to play with tempo, all that kind of stuff. I think Carrick has tried to play like a slow possession based system this year to kind of mitigate us getting caught on the transition, but we've kind of lost our attacking threat because of that, because it was very gung-ho. And then midfield-wise, we just look really poor. And it's just a kind of, as Tony Mowbray famously once said, it is what it is. And we have Wednesday against Sheffield Wednesday is absolutely massive. But should we talk about the game then? Because we did make changes. Bangura came in, and so did O'Brien for the debut. Crooks came back at the side. So did Vandenberg and Marcus Forss. No Lucas Engel all missed out entirely. Got B2-1, bottom of the league. Setting up in that same 4-2-3-1, and O'Brien was on that left-hand side, which I thought was really interesting. But Dana, how was the atmosphere yesterday? You were there, with Dave, and I mean, how was it? Yeah, because it was the atmosphere good, nervy, frustration. What was the everything like?
The atmosphere was reflective of the performance. Like, if Boro don't give the fans something to get excited about, then they're not going to get excited, and it's as simple as that. And for the majority of that game, they didn't give us anything to shout about, and the atmosphere was crap because of it, because Boro were crap. And I think it's rather indicative of Boro's fall off that in the second half, the fans were sarcastically chanting, "We scored a goal." I don't know if that came up on the streams, but that kind of self-deprecating chanting from the stands is never a good sign. So yeah, you know what? I said to you before the game, didn't I, Jonny, that I wasn't excited. It's not really to do with Boro, because I don't get excited for a lot of things until afterwards, which is very strange. But yeah, just went there and thought, let's see what we can do after the international break. And I always find it's really frustrating, to a degree even worrying, that we could come out after the international break with a similar poor performance as going into it. Because in the first half, Boro were really bad. We'll get onto it, but we were really poor, and the crowd kind of reflected that, and it was a massive shame. The plus point of the trip was the egg mayo sandwiches in the car on the way back, which I know that you absolutely hate. Me and Tom love our egg sandwiches in the car. I think really
I'm sorry, Dana. I'm sorry. It's just not in a car. It's like it's up there with fish. If someone's
don't
fish,
do the egg
I wouldn't group them
that.
together.
That is
I'm
not having that.
But my point is, if someone's making fish in the microwave at work, that is horrendous behaviour. I think an egg mayo sandwich in a car where there's, maybe poor ventilation, I think it's up there. It's up there. Hey,
World's gone.
hey,
World has gone.
not
No,
saying it's a bad sandwich. It's a nice sandwich, but it's not in a car. Anyway, sorry, go on. You were saying it was a highlight of your trip, I guess. Yeah.
That was the point. The egg mayo on the way back was the highlight of the game. Blackburn is slowly getting up there with Orkwell, I think. If last season didn't happen and we didn't win, then I would probably put Ewood Park in the please delete this stadium off the footballing map. Thank you.
Yeah, I've never seen a score at Ewood Park either, so I'm glad I didn't go yesterday. But Tom, look, another defeat. How would you assess things? Dana was saying that there hasn't been too much improvement. Do you echo the same things there?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, like I said earlier, I don't think we were as bad with the basics yesterday. I didn't notice as many passes going 2 yards behind people. That's not to say that they weren't played slightly behind at times. It was very much reflective of the Rugby World Cup that's going on at the moment, because they were kind of side to side and very much in line with players rather than in front of them. Yeah, it did seem like we were a little bit better with that, a little bit more positive in the second half, but really there's still... I mean, there's still work to be done, but like you say, we've got underlying numbers there that say we are actually creating chances and stuff. We just need to stick some of them away. I feel like if we'd have done that yesterday, we might be looking at it thinking, right, it wasn't a perfect performance, but at least we've got something from it. With what happened yesterday, the main gripe for me at the moment is our defending, and I don't understand why we're so bad at it and conceding such poor goals all the time, because you're looking at a defence where the centre defensive partnership of Fry and Lenihan would get into a lot of teams in the Championship. We've got an ex-Real Madrid, England international centre-back on the coaching staff. And as was the case when he was manager himself, we still can't organise a defence. And it's so frustrating given the quality that we have in terms of defensive players, and coach who's been there and done it all in his career, and we can't organise ourselves. And it's even the same where Tommy Smith, who's got a lot of experience, comes into the defence. We still weren't great at defending last season. I feel like if we just resolve that issue, we might and just gain a little bit more solidity, it might give us more of a chance. But for me, in terms of doing the basics, that's where we're stuck at the moment. And I think as soon as we resolve that, that's going to give us much more of a base to build from.
I really do think that we could benefit from having a sit-in midfielder, because Boro are getting transitioned on really easily. There was so many times yesterday where from the crowd I just kept hearing too easy. It took Blackburn about 4 or 5 passes to break through and to breach our defence and suddenly be bearing down on our goal. That is so poor, and it's so simplistic as well. And I just think that if Boro are going to pile men forward in the way that we do, I do think there has to be that extra protection that we didn't have last season, because we do not have the attack of last season. We are not effective or as effective last season. And I just think that if we have that sitter, it won't solve every problem, but I just think to try to stop or reduce the leakiness that we have, it might go somewhere. So kind of advocating for 4-3-3 at this point in terms of off the ball and defending attacks. But we don't really have the profile of player there, I don't think, to be a sitter, really. So I know we were linked with Frank Onyeka last season, weren't we? It's a shame that I think it was Norgard that got injured, and then that scuppered it, because, I mean, he could be here now, you never know. Somebody like him in midfield, like a kind of midfield destroyer, might go somewhere. It won't go the whole way to solving the problems, but just might give us that extra protection when we're being transitioned on, which we see quite frequently, and it's far too easy for teams to do so.
I think just from what you're both saying there, like for me, like, and Tommy, you mentioned earlier on the defence, I think the defence's problem is because of the midfield, and I think
I agree.
there's so much space between. So when we go forward, the space between our defence and our midfield is quite big. So then what happens is we overcommit, and then some will get an interception, transition. Two people are already in that nice little space between the lines, as you will, and then you're able to get out of that press and go for it. And I think they do get exposed quite a lot. But interestingly, when you're saying about the Citadel, like technically, we play with double pivot. Really, that in a 4-2-3-1, about the idea is, you've got 6 at the back and you attack with 4, and that is kind of like how you could try and balance it. Or you could play like a 5-5 in terms of 5 defensive players, 5 attacking players, gives you a nice bit of balance. Doesn't really feel like that at the minute. Doesn't really feel as balanced. And I feel like the midfield is probably, which was quite funny last year, was probably our best part of the team, but now we've just seemed to have completely lost that way. I would
But it was
like
our
to
best part. It was our best part because the players in front of them were also effective. So it's like the facts are that we do not have the same players as last season. We do not have the same attack. And I do think things might have to be and probably should be tweaked to enable a much better defensive structure, because I completely agree, and we've mentioned it quite a few times in this podcast, that there are so many runs being made off Hackney and Howson, and in possession, I think they're brave. I think they're not, like, in possession, it's not their weakness. Their weakness is off the ball, and I don't know. It's weird at the moment, isn't it? Because Carrick, I think it's very clear he doesn't know what his best team is, and I think what we have to say within that is that this is Carrick's first full season as a manager, and expectations were skewed massively from last season. We did not expect that to happen last season. I remember when Carrick was appointed, and I was like, he's not exciting me. Like, it's kind of an appointment where it's very unknown, and he raised those expectations, and now they've stuck. But the facts are that Carrick is still a very inexperienced manager, and these little issues are going to arise whereby you're looking at the team, the selections, the omission of McGree, for example, and think there is a bit of managerial experience at play here. And yeah, we just need to ride through it, but it's frustrating, and I think pressure will mount on him if results continue.
Yeah, and just on the point that you mentioned there on like the runners, an attacker is only as good as his midfield. The midfield is only as good as defense, and all the way through, all the way. So it's like defense is only good as midfield, etc. And I think when you do have a missing cog in the wheel, then that's kind of how things tend to really fall apart. But it's such a test and learn type game, really, isn't it? I think you've got to try things, and if it comes off, great. If it doesn't, you've got to go back to the drawing board. And unfortunately, you're in an industry where you probably don't get time anymore. Whereas maybe you're probably talking maybe about 10, 15 years ago, you were people who were in charge for like 5-6 years, and they would have a really good period, and then they would change on the next thing. But now it's a bit different. We've also, then you're saying there, Dana, though, like first year management, we've lost a lot of players that were really good quality. I think now when you're looking at Akpom and Archer, and where Giles is now and where Ramsey's at as well, and probably Alex Moat as well, who I know he's at West Brom, but good players in and around the group, and also the quality that we've kind of lost, and we've had to bring in new players on a budget. And it's not like, and I always get this thing where, oh, well, Kieran Scott's rubbish, but and all this kind of stuff, but he gets a budget from the top, right? This gets passed down to him. He's got a budget for like the playing staff and the coaching and team and all that kind of stuff. And it has to balance at some point. So we really don't know what our budget was this year, but we've had to probably play within that to get how many players we need to, and then try to sell them on as well. So then sometimes the quality might not always be as good, and you are paying for potential at sometimes. And I can see some glimpses of really good stuff, and I do see some stuff, but like some good stuff. But right now it's like we desperately need that win. I think, but I do think though, if we get one win, we'll get a second win, and then a third win, and then like a fourth win, and it'll just the wheels will start to get in motion again, and we'll go a bit further up the table. And I think they'll have the setbacks, but as long as hopefully mid table like Christmas, I'm all right. I'm all right by that.
Yeah, just to put just to add to a point that you just mentioned there, as crap as Boro are right now, like, because we are playing poorly, and the results are really poor as well. Crazily, it doesn't feel like we're a million miles away from being somewhat okay. And, we've been in the Championship for, I think, 13 of the last 15 seasons. We all know what this division is like, and we all know how quickly things can turn and change. And I'm not trying to blow away or ignore and be blissfully ignorant to how poor we have been. But we all know that these are the very basics. And I'm just hoping that with time, these can be ironed out. And as frustrating as it is right now, I do think there will be a point where things will kind of sort itself out to a degree. So maybe that's just me being naive, but that's just what I believe. And yeah, I'm hoping that that's the case anyway, that things will sort themselves out and that the performances will be more reflective of like the data, for example. But right now it is absolutely frustrating. I'm tired. I have tiredness in my eyes from watching Middlesbrough. It's just doom and gloom at the moment, isn't it? But I think things will turn and change for the better.
Yeah, I hope they do as well. I think there's the one glimmer of hope that I have is that we create plenty of chances. Like bad teams don't create chances like at all, and they give a load away. Whereas we create loads, we don't give much away. But then when we do give stuff away, it's really stupid stuff, and then we just get we concede, and like that's where we kind of we have those problems. But we obviously had an international break now, and they've had time to maybe go on the training ground, relax a little bit, have a pina colada, do whatever they want for a couple of weeks. Some of them were away on international duty and doing all good things. But just want to play a bit devil's advocate, right? I know that we are bottom of the league right now, but Tom, do you think, was there anything at all that gave you a bit of glimpse of like positivity, optimism for the games that are ahead?
I don't know if this does or not, or if I might just be getting carried away, but we had a good spell in the second half yesterday when we were pushing for that equaliser, and our best football was coming when we were playing with a high press, and our defence was pretty much camped on the halfway line. Blackburn couldn't get out, and on that run of play, I think it was right up until Bangura got injured, it only looked like one team were going to score, and it looked like it was going to be us, and it looked a lot closer to what we had last season. We were playing, like I say, balls in behind through the channels. We were able to kind of run onto it. We were being very aggressive and direct with our passing, and the one example I remember of it is Hackney really kind of running, like driving at the defence and trying to unlock something. If we could play like that more often, the results would come, in my opinion. And I don't think that's something we have been doing for the first 5 games. I always think with some of the goals we've conceded and generally our defending, we've been quite passive and more kind of inviting them onto us, and that's when the mistakes have started happening. But if
Absolutely.
we can move the ball up the pitch and press up with it and really kind of close the space, then really what we've got to look out for then is, the quicker players getting in behind and getting on the counter-attack. But that is when the possession game really kind of comes back into it. And, if you can't create something, you go back to the defence and recycle it, but you do it in their side of the pitch. It did look up until Bangura's injury to me like that was effective for us and we were going to get an equaliser. So that is something I think gives me hope. And if we can, like I say, if we can do that consistently now, I think the goals will follow.
Dana, have you got anything?
Yeah, I agree with the second half. Well, it wasn't even fully the second half because we started the second half terribly. I think we lost possession of the ball within about 10 seconds. I didn't even see it. I just looked back up and all of a sudden Blackburn on the counter-attack. But I think the game state kind of matters there because Boro had to be better. They were chasing the game. They were 2-0 down. Really funny the way that we scored, really, because it shouldn't have counted. Crooks was offside. I think Marcus Force, I think that was a shot initially. I think it's so Middlesbrough at the moment that we scored from a really crap shot, if that was the case. Certainly looked like it anyway. But yeah, the second half of performance, or probably the last 40 minutes of the game, I'd say, Boro were better and they were probing. But to have 40 minutes of probing and being better and having one rather fortuitous goal to show for it is very Middlesbrough at the moment, isn't it? So, and if I'm being honest, I think Boro should have probably been about 4-0 down at a point, because Tyrese Dolan had a chance where I think it was right in the goal mouth. Another thing that I didn't see. Do I even watch football matches at this point? Like, why do I keep missing things? But yeah, he flashed that header wide, and then Sam Gallagher, I thought that was the moment that Sam Gallagher was going to score when he glanced a header wide. So they probably should have been 2-0 up there. Then the 2 goals that they scored. I know the XG shows different, but I don't care. I'm going to ignore it because I think Boro weren't deserving of anything from that game. And in the end, the fact that we were only a goal away from snatching something from that match flatters us immeasurably, because Blackburn deserved that win 100%. But yeah, back to the positive. I think the 40-minute display in the second half was better, but does it really count for much when we kind of had to be better? I've argued that way on the podcast before, where it's not that big of a positive if you simply have to be better than the performance that you put in prior to that. But yeah, let's put it down as a positive, just because we need a positive at the moment, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. Any positives on my front? Not really many. I think I don't think there was many positives yesterday at all. I think that first half an hour, the game should have been done and dusted. It should have been to bed,
100%.
and should have been 3 or 4-0, and I would have been like, yep, that is the game for me. Like, that should have been what it was, but it's what it is. I think I thought Bangura was quite bright yesterday. He was a bit more advanced than we had seen previously from Engel. Obviously, that's a bonus, but I don't want to like give positives out for being positive sake. I think there's a lot of stuff that we need to keep working on and get that 1 to 2% better every time we're on the pitch, and just try to get it to click. And what I would say though, I'd like to see maybe O'Brien in a deeper role, maybe against Sheffield Wednesday. Probably I would take House now as well. So there you go. That's my management thing of the week. But I want to do something a bit more upbeat. Well, not upbeat. It's just a fun stat. Because we got a stat from our graphic designer Matt. So Matt stat is I'm now calling it. And he sent us Matt stat, yeah. And he gave us a really good message this morning. And he said, so Boro this season have already conceded 13 goals in the opening 6 league games. The question is, how many games in 15-16 season did the Boro promotion winning side concede their 13th goal of the season? So yeah, what game week do you reckon we conceded our 13th league goal of the season in the 15-16 season? I'll give you a bonus point as well. It was who do we concede that 13th goal against?
Oh God.
Tom, what game week do you think it was in that 15-16 season?
Purely a guess based on the fact that our first 2 games, I think, were clean sheets that year. It was 0-0 against Preston and then 3-0 against Bolton. I'm going to go with week 20. Or game 20.
Yeah, game 20. And do you have a team that scored that 13th goal?
No.
Oh, go on.
Great.
You're going to have to guess.
Thanks, Tom. Cheers, Tom.
Trying to remember who was even still in the league at that point. Probably someone like Rotherham, wasn't it? Or Blackburn.
Okay. Dana, what are you going to go for?
I've had 25 in my head. 25 games. Oh, Jesus. Hull? Away?
No. So the results are in. It was game week. You were very close then. It was game week 26.
Oh, you're kidding me. 1 out. I'll take that.
It was Bristol City away in the 95th minute. Burns scored, and the assist was from Aidan Flint in the 95th minute. So we were obviously top of the table by then as well. Hull was second, so you were close then, and we were on 55 points from the 26 games, and we only conceded 13 goals in that time. So how crazy is that? I mean, look at us. That was, and that's and look at us now. You know, Who would have thought? Not me. But I want to look at the fixtures ahead. I want to look at the fixtures ahead, because we after yesterday's game, we still sit foot of the table with 1 point. Our next 5 games are really interesting for us to look at. I want to hear how you feel about them. We've got Sheffield Wednesday, Southampton, Watford, Cardiff, and then Sunderland as well. These games feel pretty massive for me now. But how many? I've got a question in 2 parts, and I'll come to you first, Dana. But how many points do you think we can get in those next few games? And secondly, how many points do you think we actually need in that in that time?
How many points are we going to get? I think we'll. Oh, you know what? We're going to have a shit off against Sheffield Wednesday. I think that much is clear. I think I do think we'll beat them. I think we'll beat Cardiff. I think we're going to lose Southampton, Watford, and Sunderland. So, yeah. In fact, Cardiff, there's going to be a draw in there somewhere, I think, actually. So I'd say we'll get 4 points from that, which is bad.
Cardiff at home.
I think so. Yes. Yes, I want to say yes. I want to say yes.
I'm going to check this.
But does it really matter?
I think, to be honest, if it's away from home against Cardiff, no, it is at home. Though that makes me feel a little bit better, because if it was away, it would be a dead cert defeat. I don't know. There's something about Cardiff, even though I think of recent years it's been better. But yeah, I'm going to stick with, I think 4 points, honestly, which is bad.
4 points out of 5. Tom, what do you think? How many points do you reckon we can get?
Yeah, I'm going to be optimistic and say 8. I would say it's going to be a rubbish game on Tuesday, but we'll squeak a result against Sheffield Wednesday. That'll then give us the confidence to get a draw against Southampton. Home game, so I typically back us to do better in the home games anyway. Watford will lose. Cardiff, then I've got us winning that, and draw against Sunderland just because I can't take us getting beat off them again.
It's Tony Mowbray, though.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
It's a guaranteed defeat, isn't it? Yeah, guaranteed defeat against Tony Mowbray, innit? Our record against him's horrendous. It's up there with Warnock as well for bad records. But for me, I think we can do all right. I reckon we'll beat Sheffield Wednesday. I'm feeling positive. Got to be positive. And I think we'll beat Southampton as well, because I feel like their defence, it's worse than ours. It actually is probably worse than ours. I was watching them the other night against Leicester, and I was like, good grief. You play very, very expansive, and once you get counted against, there's just space everywhere, which was the same as Swansea last year. So I think we can beat them. So yeah, Dane doesn't look confident, but I think we'll get beat against Watford, and I think I feel slightly weirdly confident about Cardiff. I've always got that 2008 game or 2009 game where they beat us 2-0 in the quarter-final of the FA Cup. So always a worry. Then Sunderland could be anything, couldn't it? It's a derby, not a derby. And if they win, it is a derby. But yeah, I think the way they're playing at the moment, they probably could edge it, and I think that's a bit frustrating for us. But you never know. These 5 games could change the whole season, and we've seen it before, and we'll probably see it time and time again this year in the Championship. So, but let's move on. Let's do podcast questions, because every week you get the chance to give us a question via Twitter at Boro_breakdown, email borobreakdown@hotmail.com, or by joining our Telegram chat with over 365 Boro fans chatting nothing about Boro at all. The first question is from Matt Smith, and he says, what's happened to our defence? Lenihan and Fry are certainly capable centre-backs at this level. Is that our full-backs? Are we too lightweight in midfield? I'll take this one if you don't mind. I think it's mainly, what I was saying earlier, I think it's the gap between the midfield and the defence, which is getting us, which gets us transitioned against. And then secondly, we make a lot of individual errors, which is probably the reason why our defence is bad. But saying that, our defence under Michael Carrick hasn't always been great anyway. We were just masking that with all the goals we were scoring on the other end. So, yeah, we have made improvements to some extent, but it's still very, very weak. Lenihan and Fry, they should be on paper, a good partnership. Matt Clark will be interested to see when he comes back. Does he get a spot at centre half as well? And Vandenberg, I think, can definitely play there, and he's very, very capable of playing there as well. So we do have the options starting to change things around, but I don't think it's our fullbacks. I think it's just the gap between the midfield and the defence, which is probably the reason why we look all at sea. Defensively, next question is from Gokul, and he says, it's talking about Lewis O'Brien on the left. But he says, what do Boro need from their wide players? Tom, would you like to take this one?
Well, I think in that specific position, you need to be holding onto the ball long enough to let the left wing back overlap. Typically that worked with Giles last season. I saw enough from Bangura yesterday, actually getting over the halfway line from like Engel, and making those overlaps to know that he can create in those positions. I'd like to see the same from Engel as well. See, I don't know how likely that's going to be on Tuesday, considering Bangura went off injured. Engel's already injured. My kind of bold shout for that position would be try Isaiah Jones there. He came into the team under Warnock at left wing. He's played wing back under Wilder. I think he's got the capability to do it and be threatening in that position. But in that left-sided position, I'd definitely say come inside a little bit more, leave the space for the overlapping left full back. And if you can, try and create something centrally as well. I do think Riley McGree did that very well when he was allowed in the team. On the right-hand side, I'd like to see more kind of more crosses coming in. Again, that's a position that would be ideal for Jones. Maybe Morgan Rogers can play there. I didn't particularly like seeing Silvera on the right-hand side, even though he is right-footed. I feel like his strength is really kind of cutting in. But it is going to require kind of more clever play and overlapping from the right back and passing between them to create the space, which I think Force does quite well. I'm not a fan of seeing Van den Berg at right back. I think he's going to be a very good centre back because I think I said on the last pod, he's built like an absolute tank. He can, at 19, he can pretty much shove anyone he wants off the ball. I just feel like he doesn't have the right attributes for what we need of a right back. Really, I think Tommy Smith did that quite well, and him and Force have that good understanding on the right hand side. Ideally, for me, on the right hand side, that's what we'd see. And I think Force does that well. So, yeah, that's what I'd be looking for from both wide players.
I think I'd like to see more of a 1v1 threat, to be honest. I know Force has definitely surprised me since he's come in, because I honestly shoehorned him as a finisher and that was it. But he can take players on. I just think that Boro would benefit, and I've said this in previous podcasts, from somebody that could get to the byline like Jones, that can knock it beyond a player, run into the space, get it to the byline, because I think we're dangerous from those situations, but we're not really doing that. So I think maybe having a more of a 1v1 threat, direct goal on the outside rather than inside. The playing style of a lot of Boro's wingers is to get at their fullback, but to cut inside and to try to either shoot or play that ball in centrally. And I just don't think that, like, it's fine having that on the left, but just to complement it with something different on the right and maybe having that more direct threat against the fullback to get to the byline and put those balls in the box, because we don't really have someone. I know we scored from a header with Latte Lath, but I feel like a lot of the players that we have are probably better at, like Crooks, for example, feeding off those scraps in the goal mouth. So yeah, something that I just really want to see from Boro is having someone that can get to the byline and cut that ball back into dangerous areas.
Yeah, and it's just adding options, isn't it? I think when you've got different strengths or different types of players in different positions, you do create different problems for an opposition to have. So, yeah, more of that would be really good. And I'm the same as you, Tom. I like to see like Van den Berg more central. I feel like from what you were saying to him there, like I feel like we should start calling him like Rav Van den Tank or something like that, because like he's built like that. But yeah, I would like to see him more central. But then let's move on to the final question. It's from SJ, and it says, and they say, do you think Carrick's constant positivity about the team's performance is starting to frustrate and concern supporters? How long can he keep being positive about the performance if this run continues, which I sincerely hope we won't, and we start getting some wins? So do you think the supporters are starting to get a little bit frustrated about Carrick's positivity, Dana?
I think they are. I definitely have seen a corner of Boro's social media getting frustrated, but I'd be more worried and frustrated if he was throwing the players under the bus, to be honest, because I think Carrick is the type of measured personality that I think if he does go in on the players in the press, then something would probably be up. So I think he's well within his rights to try to keep things positive. I can obviously understand why that would frustrate supporters as well. I think supporters always want that raw honesty from a manager, but they're never going to get that, really. I think even when managers are perceived to be being honest, it's for a reason, like it's to send out a message or something. So, yeah, I mean, it is frustrating. But I just feel like that's the type of personality that Carrick is. Like, he's very composed and he's not going to panic like us fans will, because I think he's very good at disconnecting. You're not a winner at Man United the amount of times that he was if you panic. And like I've seen a few fans saying, "Oh, he'll walk. He hasn't been backed. He'll leave. He'll quit." Like Michael Carrick is a winner and has been all throughout his career. You're not a winner if you quit. So he's got to back his players. And I'd be far more worried if he wasn't backing his players in the press, because I think that would send alarm bells ringing for me.
Okay, then. Well, thank you for everyone to send in your questions as always. But let's move on. And just before we move to the praise and place, I just want to notify a few people on the Boro Breakdown shirt. It's currently being embroidered at this moment, and it should be with you probably by 18th of September. We commencing 18th September. So hopefully that next week or the week after, the shirts will arrive, and then we'll be back on sale as well. We got a lot of time and effort and also embroidery in this one, so it took a little bit longer than usual, but it will be with you guys very, very soon, and we do appreciate everyone that's bought a shirt as well. But let's move on. Let's go at the praise and place. Yes, the praise and place. The praise and place is the place where to give praise to a player, coach and staff member, the film Pretty Woman, and I don't know, Tom, anything that you've got in your mind, which deserves a bit of praise. But Dana, who is in your praise and place this week?
It's difficult immediately after a defeat, because I feel like no matter who you put in there, it's kind of like, but why? But I will praise Dale Fry. I think Fry yesterday, I actually thought was good. There were a lot of times where he was stepping in, being aggressive, winning the duels. And yeah, I mean, he got done with that first goal. But to be honest, I've just put that down to really clever play, really clever dummy by Sam Gallagher, and Sammy Schmolix, to be fair, was fantastic for them yesterday. I don't think we've really given Blackburn a lot of credit, but I liked their setup from a kind of putting my neutral perspective on yesterday. I thought they were popping 1-2s past us at ease, really, and I think the way that Thomason has that team set up, at least for the majority of the game, was pretty good. But I think Dale Fry was strong in his defensive performance, which is ironic because we're talking about like defensive frailties and such. But I think it's true that you can have defensive frailties and yet parts of your defense can have good performances. And I will also praise Senny Dieng, because the goals that we conceded, you could probably say for the first time that he should have done better with them. But then in the second half, he bailed us out massively and he kept us in that game. And he was the reason why the score was kept down in the end. That and some poor finishing from Blackburn to really, really kill the game off. But he came up with some really big saves in that second half. And I think the thing with the praise of place, by the way, is that, we're not giving out player of the match awards for these. It's just praising moments. And I think I'm going to praise Senny Dieng for his saves, and I'll praise Dale Fry for some good defensive moments as well in that game yesterday.
Tom, who's going to get your place in the praise and place this week?
I'm going to Hayden Hackney. Like I said right at the start of the podcast, I feel like there's quite a few players there who are maybe lacking a bit of confidence and composure at the key moments. I don't think he was one of them. Let's face it, coming back from international break where you've just made your debut for England under 21s, you should be full of confidence, and he did look like that. Second half, especially, constantly getting on the ball and driving through the midfield, looking to create. I feel like as well, being low on confidence some players being low on confidence, it might be easy to stop kind of playing in the way you're being coached, especially, playing out from the back and stuff. He's never once looked like he was lacking confidence in doing that. He's always been, dropping deep to get the ball and play it off to the full backs or the centre backs, and try and beat the press when it's there. So, I think he's been very consistent in what he does in the team, and I thought yesterday was probably one of our only positive players. And as a secondary, I'll put Marcus Force in there for, again, also being a real kind of source of positivity in the team, constantly kind of cutting inside, looking to get a shot off. Had quite a decent one saved at the near post, as I remember. But I thought Hackney and Force for me.
Can I just say something about Hackney? Because he's come under some criticism after the game, I saw on social media. I will give him credit that at least he was trying to break through Blackburn's structure. A lot of people say that he was poor yesterday. And I think that obviously he lost possession a lot of times, but he lost possession a lot of times because his teammates weren't moving. Like, honestly, there was a point in the first half where Hackney himself had the ball for about 7 or 8 seconds, which I feel like is a long time in midfield. And it was enough time for me to take my focus off him and look elsewhere around him. No one moved. How can a midfielder like Hayden Hackney that wants to progress the ball when the teammates aren't moving? Like, our players yesterday were playing stuck in the mud at points. We were just stood there. And so how can a midfielder really influence a game in the way that you want him to when no one around him is giving him the option to pass? And I think from that move, he ended up passing it back to Dale Fry. So, yeah, amongst many other frustrating things of that game, the lack of movement was one of them, and the slow tempo was another. But it all culminated that way because collectively, we weren't moving. We weren't trying to increase the pace of the game. And yeah, Hackney's come under criticism, but if you don't move, honestly, it's like mannequins in Primark out there on Ewood Park yesterday. It was crazy how just stuck we were. It was frustrating to watch, but yeah, just put that in there.
Yeah, it is very frustrating to watch. And just on Lighter Laugh as well, like when it turns to, like, movement and stuff, I would quite like Lighter Laugh just to stand offside for long periods and then come into the game just to give the defender something to think about. Because I feel like sometimes when you play in front of the defender too much, he always knows where you are and you can know where your movement's going to be. Stand offside. Just before that second pass comes into it, the last pass before you come to him, just run around the defender. And then, I mean, that's like a very simple thing to do, but like it's just something that just give like another team something to think about. Do you know what I mean? I just feel like we just need to keep start doing more like that. But
just to add on, I was going to say, just to add on about Lighter Laugh, I do wonder if he's got a very similar thing to, back when Pulis was manager, and you had Traore and everyone saying kind of like lack of end product, and he ended up having that sprint coach coming in and essentially telling him to slow down so he can kind of think more. I wonder if he could benefit from kind of the same sort of coaching, because it does seem like everything he does and every decision he makes is like at 100 mile an hour. Like the whole, taking a good first touch yesterday, then taking another one to try and take it past the goalkeeper. Fair enough, that could be a confidence thing. Might be, having 6 1-on-1 saved by Begovic the match before. He's maybe thinking, I don't want to shoot in case the same thing happens again. But it does always seem like he's always making those decisions as fast as he's running. Whereas if he could slow down and just get a little bit more composure, he might, improve as a striker, and potentially, the standoff side thing could play into that as well. If he's just kind of really slowing down and thinking about it more and using his pace at the right moment rather than, all the time.
He's a bit of an overthinker, though, isn't he? And I think this is what I've taken from Lighter Laugh. I like a lot of his game. I think he's, a bit of a bustly forward. He has that small stature, but he can outmuscle defenders and he's quick. And I do think that he's the one yesterday and throughout this season, actually, is the one that has actually tried to make those moves. A lot of the time he hasn't been spotted. But I think it's very clear, and I don't care if it's early for me to say this, that he's not a natural finisher, because he overthought that one-on-one yesterday by taking that extra touch. He's probably been guilty of overthinking other one-on-ones that he's missed. He's not a natural finisher. He'll probably get us like 10, 11 goals this season, in my opinion. That's my guess. But I don't think he's that kind of ruthless forward. He'll do a lot of good work, don't get me wrong, and I do like a lot of his game. But when it comes to finishing, we've seen, or at least I think I've seen enough now to put my neck on the line and say that he's not a natural finisher. And that might be controversial. That isn't me writing him off outright. As I said, I think he will get us goals. I just don't. I think if people are expecting Latte to get us like 20 goals or maybe even 15 goals, I think maybe expectations need to be lowered. He gets it in good positions. I'll give him that. But I just don't think he has that that kind of instinctiveness when he's in front of goal to be properly ruthless. I think we've seen enough chances, or I've seen enough chances to come to that conclusion.
I think the fact that he does all that good work and does actually get into positions, I think it's just a time where it might click, and I think that's when we'll hopefully start to see the best out of him. In terms of my present players, I was actually going to go with Dieng for just his saves yesterday, and then I was again Marcus Forss. I thought he just such a direct player, and I would like to see him up top as like a 2 with like a laugh as well, just to see how it would just work off, because Laugh does a lot of good off the ball work. Marcus Forss is that finisher. Let's see how it could potentially work, but. Let's move on. Let's move on to Sheffield Wednesday now, because Boro are in the bottom of the table clash against. I didn't think I'd be saying that at the start of this season. But we spoke to James Mappin from Wednesday Till I Die podcast to find out a little bit more about Sheffield Wednesday's summer and the start of their season.
Hi, it's James from the Wednesday Till I Die podcast. Yeah, summer. Well, it was certainly eventful for us. Obviously, we've had the playoffs, which I'm sure everyone's seen, coming back from 4 goals down against Peterborough, winning in the last minute at Wembley, absolutely epic scenes and games that I'll remember for a lifetime. We're on a high. We were absolutely buzzing after that. Fast forward to now, and all that excitement has just vanished. Yeah, Darren Moore's gone. We brought in Cisco Munoz. The transfer window, I'll be perfectly honest, hasn't been great. There's been some exciting signings, but none of are tried and tested. On transfer deadline day, we did bring in some decent additions. Jeff Hendrick from Newcastle and John Buckley from Blackburn. Excited to see what they can do. We've not seen them yet. Obviously recording this just before the weekend's game against Ipswich as well. We're 5 games in, 1 point, 4 defeats and a draw. The draw coming last time out against Leeds United. Look, it's going to be a hard slog this season. I think most fans thought we had a squad that were perhaps good enough to finish mid-table. I think it's clear now that we're going to be in a relegation dogfight. Bit surprised to see you boys down there as well. I did tip you for coming in the automatic promotion places at the start of the season, so you need some. You've got some work to do to avoid me having egg on my face with that one. But yeah, the season so far it's been awful. The performances haven't been great. Yes, we've played 2 of the relegated sides in Southampton and Leeds already. But like I said, the performances just haven't been good at all. Cisco doesn't know what his best 11 is. He doesn't know what his best formation is. We've played about 4 or 5 different formations already, including the cup games. I think he's used something like 19 or 20 different players in his starting 11 so far, which it's just not great. And, the pressure is mounting. Pressure's mounting on the chairman as well. A lot of people wanting to sell the club. And I just didn't think that we'd be in this situation right now after the euphoria of winning at Wembley. It's just a bit of a sad state really, and not one that, like I said, that I thought would be in. That being said, I think there has been improvements in the performances since the start of the season. However, the bar hasn't been set very high at all. We're not scoring enough goals. We're not conceding a great deal. Hull being the outlier where we conceded 4, but that was just an abysmal display. We held Leeds to a 0-0 draw. Southampton had to score in the 87th minute to beat us. We conceded a last-minute goal and a penalty against Cardiff to lose that game. So we have been close. We should have more points than what we've got at the moment. But yeah, Tuesday against you boys is going to be a big test. In terms of a prediction, it's a difficult one. I think at the start of the season, looking at this fixture, I was probably thinking a draw would be a fantastic result, given that, as I've said, I predicted you boys to finish in the top 2 at the end of this season. Having said that, you've had a poor start of the season. It's one where we could potentially capitalise. I think it's going to be a tight game. I don't think it's going to be a free-flowing game. I think there'll be quite a few nerves on the show, given that, at the time of recording, it's second bottom versus bottom. But yeah, I think I'll go with my head and my heart, because my heart is saying that we could potentially nick a win, maybe a 2-1 win. My head is probably saying it's going to finish as a 1-1 draw. I hate to say it, and I didn't think it would be, but is it a relegation 6 points? I'm sure you're not going to think it's that, but it's a chance for us to get some points on the board against a side that's clearly struggling. So yeah, it's going to be one that I'm looking forward to. Season ticket holder, of course. I'll be there on Tuesday night, and fingers crossed. Hopefully, we've already got a win by then. But if we haven't, fingers crossed the win comes on Tuesday. Cheers, guys, and all the best for the rest of the season.
Thank you, James. And just a disclaimer that they didn't win, and it is bottom versus second bottom on Tuesday night, and it's a big game in my opinion. And hopefully we can go there and try and get 3 points. But let's get your predictions. Tom, how are you feeling about this one? I'm assuming it's a must win, but what's your prediction as well?
I'm going 2-1 Boro. As I mentioned earlier in the earlier question, I think we can get a win against them. Would really be interested to see our lineup on Tuesday. Something I'd like to see if Football Manager's right or not is Greenwood coming in for Crooks, because spoiler for anyone listening who's a Football Manager player, Greenwood is quality on Footy Manager, so hopefully he is in real life as well. But yeah, I'm going 2-1 Boro against them.
2-1 Lenihan anytime as well. Dana, what's your prediction?
I'm going to say the same. I'm going to go 2-1 to us. In terms of goal scorers, Rodgers scored against Bolton, didn't he? So I can't say Rodgers again. I'm going to say Rodgers to score until Rodgers scores didn't really last very long. Oh, dear me. I think Lassie laugh. No, actually, I don't.
Oh, interesting.
Ooh, and Hackney and McGree will score for us.
Yeah, I'm going to go 2-0 as well. And I'm going to go laugh on the double. I can see it. He's gonna look like the prime striker that we bought him for. Even though he has been good though. To be fair,
he has.
Just finishing, just being.
It's in front of goal. Yeah,
it's just
classic Boro striker. Then
that's what I mean. We were blessed last year, so it doesn't really matter to us. But guys, thank you very much for joining me as always, and to the viewers and the listeners on this. Viewers on YouTube, don't forget to give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. It helps us get found. And also to our podcast provider people who listen to us and go, this podcast is pretty good. Give us a 5-star rating. Helps us get found, charted, and all that fun stuff, especially the ones on Spotify. We're on 400, I think now. I think just off 399. So get us to 400, that'd be great. But guys, thank you very much for joining me as always. Listen, thank you very much for listening. Boro are bottom, and can we get off the foot of the table? I really, really hope so. This has been the Boro Breakdown podcast, and that was like Boro Matchday Chatter in a pod. The Boro Breakdown.